Hey, I want to introduce you to my guest today. It's Fabian Sookoo. He's one of my dear friends. He's a real estate investor, and I thought we'd have a nice conversation and find out, what's the difference between selling your house through a realtor on the retail market or when an investor comes and offers you money for a house. So welcome, Fabian.
Hi, thanks for having me, Mike.
So let's get to know Fabian just a little bit. So how'd you get into investing and being a builder?
Real estate for me is something that I kind of fell into. I was working in restaurants 10 years ago, and I was just struggling. I started managing in restaurants, and literally, I used to look at the other people around me who were maybe 20, 25 years older than me, and I couldn't see myself the next 25, 30, 40 years. My whole life plan just, here it is in front of me, and this is
right.
it. It's already written for me and set in stone,
Right.
Holidays, weekends, nights, it's all kind of set up for me. And I just, for me, it wasn't something that I was ready to accept in my life. Like this is it, So I started, this is when those TV shows came about, the $1 Million Listing shows and all these shows that are on TV. And I'm watching it one day, and all I could think is, look at these guys that are just a few years older than me. What's the difference in them and me that they're, able to obtain success or go after success, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And so one day I decided I'm gonna flip a house. I just said it to myself. So I came into my job and I started talking, and I started telling people I'm gonna flip a house, and I just started talking about it. And there was a kid that was about a year or two younger than me. He was serving, and he said, "Hey, my dad's a retired cop, but he's flipped 1 or 2 houses in his life." So he was like, let me ask him and see if he'd want to do something, because this kid was interested in wealth.
Wow.
So I said, yeah, great, So fast forward, his dad said if I found a property and a project and it was good, he'd get into it with us. So I started searching, and I found a property in Kings Park. I put an offer in. Then I found out I needed to have a business. I found out I needed money to buy a house. So okay, I ended up opening an LLC. And I still needed to get funded. So the dad said he happened to know someone who would be able to fund us the money, at X amount of percent and all these other things. And fast forward, we bought the house, we closed on it, and we fixed it. The dad decided to tell us he's gonna help us, run the show because he's did it before. So he didn't allow us to hire a contractor. He made me and his son do all the work.
Okay.
One piece of wood at a time, one garbage bin at a time, and it took us 9 months.
Wow.
And he felt that it was gonna teach us a lesson in learning how to do it yourself and taking pride, and I guess fast forward it did. So we did that flip, we sold it, and I guess the rest is history.
So that's pretty crazy. I want to rewind. So first of all, you started in the restaurant business. I did too.
Yes.
I was the guy you were looking at that made a career of it, but I was there on purpose. I was deliberately shooting that goal. But you're a young guy. Mm-hmm. So you're pretty young then when you made this decision to do your first house.
Yeah, it wasn't like a career choice. It wasn't like I decided this is gonna be the rest of my life to do investing. Yeah, it was just something that I figured it's a way to get out of what I was doing and hopefully get into something that I thought could make some money. Obviously, I didn't know nothing about real estate. I didn't know anybody in real estate. I've never done anything in real estate. It's just a chance I was hoping to take. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really, and when I was talking about it, the chance of it really happening was very slim. So the chance that it did happen, I'm grateful for.
So you don't necessarily do this all for money. Obviously, we want to get paid, but
correct.
Is it turned into your passion?
150%. Why?
What is it you like about taking a distressed property and bringing it to market in a really nice position?
I would say it's more than just even taking a distressed property, fixing it up, making it beautiful, and selling it, right? Because there's so much more components to it for me now. As time went on, I opened a construction company that I still own today. So I have guys that work for me. So doing these projects, I was able to open a business where I give people a job and they can make money and support their family and have consistent pay. So that's important to me. And then on top of that, I grew up in Brentwood, and people work hard for their money, and if they're lucky enough, they get to buy one house in their life. So I learned early on in flipping that there's a lot of investors and contractors who honestly just care about money, and they don't care about people. So they're gonna do a flip, and they're gonna do bad work. They're gonna they're gonna skip out on things, miss on things, cover things up. And it sucks that family who buys that house, who saved up for this one house in their life, put all their money into buying this house, now has to change something that's going to cost them $20,000 and that they don't have, that they thought they were, getting that was renovated. So in me, I felt the need to say, hey, I'm gonna make it a point that when I do this, I'm gonna do it the right way. Because I can't sleep at night knowing that I purposely didn't do something and now somebody else has to pay for it.
You're not cutting corners. You take pride in it.
No, yeah, nobody's perfect, but by all means, I'm gonna try my best to do the best I can.
Was in the early part of your business, was a lot of your activity in the area where you grew up?
No. So because I didn't know flipping and I didn't know how to look for properties. I didn't know people who had properties. I didn't know where to start. So literally, I was online on Zillow, on any website I could find, just looking for things that said foreclosure or things that looked really in bad condition, and kind of just said, hey, wherever you are, let me see if I can work the numbers. And again, I didn't know what numbers were, so I was just hoping for the best. There was a lot of hoping and wishing and praying in the beginning.
Well, there's a whole lot of TV shows out there, and I watched them all, and boy, it's pretty easy, right? You just buy a house, you fix it up, and you make money on it, right? You make a lot of money. It's easy every time, isn't it?
It's if it was that easy, man, everybody would do it. There's some fun and exciting parts to it, but there's a lot of parts that they don't show on those shows that people don't know about, and those are the parts that'll get you.
There's risk.
Tons.
Sometimes you don't know what you're getting into. Especially if you're buying a house that was maybe on an auction where they don't even let you go inside. You just get to walk around the outside. Right. Even sometimes when you do an inspection, you look at the house. There's things that are hidden that you just can't see
until you open up them walls.
Plumbing,
man. You really,
joists,
just don't know. Yeah.
Right. So surprises come.
A ton of them.
And then what about the town with permits and things like that? I mean, that could slow you down too, right?
If you get stopped by the town, or if you don't do things a certain way, I mean, it can really throw a wrench in it, and not only throw a wrench in the work. It costs money. If you're not paying all cash for the house and you're using hard money or lenders, that interest daily adds up while you're sitting there doing nothing, and then you go from a good deal to an okay deal, and real quick can go to a bad deal.
So just in case all my listeners aren't up on all the terminology, I want to explain what hard money is. Hard money is somebody who's willing to invest in cash and give you money where a bank wouldn't.
Correct.
And because they make that risk, they charge you a much higher percentage of interest on that loan.
Correct.
So typically when someone like yourself is investing in a property, once you secure that property, your goal is to get it back on the market as fast as you can, because while you're repairing that property and putting more money into it, you're paying somebody an interest rate on a loan, kind of like a mortgage. You're paying. What is the reasonable amount of time for you when you plan on a property, from the time you take over to the time you want to get it sold? How many months do you plan on this?
So for me personally, I give myself 6 months. So I say 6 months to buy, fix, renovate, find a buyer, them to get a mortgage at that point and sell it. The goal is to sell it faster than that if possible. Sure. But I try to say 6 months. So when I do my numbers, it's all based on 6 months. Yeah.
So you've got to really cover yourself to cover that expense besides the labor and all the materials to flip the house.
100%. And you obviously have miscellaneous money. You have, there's so many variables that you have to look into as far as what you have to account for, because one mistake can cost you a lot. One number that you didn't realize. You didn't account for a roof, and now there's a roof and this and that. So and those things happen. So if you can just account for the worst case scenario, and then if it goes better than that, then you luck out and you make a little bit more.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So as you've grown your business, you mentioned that you have a crew, right? So it's my understanding that that's the best position to be in. But to have a crew, you need to keep them employed steady. Which means to keep employed steady, you have to have one house after another or overlapping properties to keep these crews moving.
Correct.
Was it hard in the beginning to get that volume going where you could actually maintain a crew and you didn't have to hire construction crews on it for one deal at a time?
Yeah, now that you asking me that question, it made me think. In the beginning, it took me a lot longer to do projects than it does now. Lack of experience, my crew having a lack of experience, the person leading them being me, not knowing certain things that I know now. So I did need to have one house after the other, which I guess luckily enough I was able to figure that out. But the projects were taking a lot longer, so I didn't need a project every month. I was able to get a project every few months.
Right.
And then on top of that, as I started telling people, I have a construction company, quote unquote, you would hear the occasional, hey, can you help me do this, that, a bathroom? So there was a little bit of stuff in between to keep us going. And then fast forward, 7, 8 years now, I was able to keep the company afloat.
That's good, because, the average person, if, myself, if I bought a house with the idea to fix it up and sell it, I'm hiring a plumber, I'm hiring an electrician, I'm hiring a carpenter, but I'm probably paying retail price for that guy. right? And so then it makes the numbers really hard to manage, but to get your costs right and to get the selling price right and have a little money left over to make sense of it. So it's really important to get a steady crew where you're paying the labor and you really have a much better advantage over the average person.
100%. You know, the only reason I actually have a construction company is not my first flip, but my second flip, I hired a company to do all the work for me. You know, I was 22, 23 years old, you know, young guy, so I needed to I needed to have somebody, you know, do the work because I didn't know the ins and outs of construction. So I hired a company, and fast forward to the end of the deal, we spent like $40,000 more than was projected, which is a ton of money, and I didn't have a lot of money to be giving. So at the end of the project, you know, I just say to the contractor, hey, you know, let's go over what happened, just so for next time I don't make the same mistakes, I learn. And he just looked me in my face and said, I don't know where the money went. And I said, great. I said, okay. So, and then now we have to sell the house. And the number that was told, that I was told we could potentially sell it for, sold for about $30,000-$40,000 less than that.
Wow.
So it was the first loss I ever took in real estate, and I didn't have.
Loss.
That's the first loss I ever took, and this was very early on, my second house. So you know, I had to make a decision. I'm going back to restaurants, or I'm gonna figure it out. So this is when I said I'm gonna get another flip, and then I started calling people. I called friends, family, anybody that knew anything about construction. Do you want to make some money? Yeah, I'll pay you cash, this and that. And I tried to take on the project myself and do it myself, right. With people that had an idea. So I did that, and it took me a very long time. It cost me a lot more money than it should have, but I did it, and I made money on my third one. And then after that, I figured I need to get some structure, and then went from there.
So how long have you now been in your business for construction? Are you like 10 years in?
Close to 10, maybe like 9, 10 years.
So, you know, there's different construction companies of all different sizes. There's massive companies that have many fleets that can go out. They could buy 50, 100 houses at a time and work on them. There's the single operator guy that could do one house with his wife on the weekends. And there's a lot of difference of construction guys in between. I know that as you get a little bit bigger, you start getting to the point where you can buy materials in bulk and have them lag over for another property. Are you at that point yet where you can buy materials, store it, and benefit from that?
Yeah, I've had a storage locker for a big storage locker for a while now, where I have extra materials from jobs. If I get a good deal, like, you know, when I go to Home Depot or building supply company, sometimes if they have good deals or clearance items that just haven't sold and they're trying to get rid of them, they'll call me or email me, say,
Windows,
hey,
doors.
I have these extra items. If you want to pick them up, you know, maybe for your next job.
Right.
So if the price is right and, you know, something I'm looking for that I might use, I take it, I buy it, I store it. You know, I don't want to buy everything and just have everything sitting there. But if it's worthwhile and I know it's something I'll use, I'm going to jump on it.
Certain things you're always going to use. Certain
100%.
tile that's in faucets. Yeah, for sure.
If the color is right, you know, it's all type of stuff, for sure.
Siding, yeah, windows. What about, excuse me, what about selling the property? Early on in your career, now you managed it, you got the property, you got the money, you figured out how to repair the house. Now you go to sell it. How were you selling it in the beginning?
So in the beginning, I was using a realtor. Okay. So I would, you know, whoever the realtor is that I helped me buy the property, I would let them sell it back for me.
Okay.
So I would trust in that realtor to say, hey, tell me what it's worth, where we can sell it, and kind of tell me what to do. You know, I was so young and I didn't have any knowledge of real estate. Whatever I was told, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to, you know, the only way to learn is to let somebody help guide me, whether it's right or wrong. I'm got to start somewhere. So I kind of let an agent or agents, depending on who helped me buy the house, guide the way.
Okay. And then how has that evolved now over the last 10 years?
So, yeah, it changed a lot, actually. So, you know, I got my real estate license. I figured, you know, I'm flipping houses. I got the construction company. The only next option is to get my license. And, you know, it's the way I can save a lot more money, you know, keep it in-house, essentially.
Sure.
So I got my license. So I listed myself now. Okay. I buy it myself. I list it myself. Even at that, you know, I love to list houses and have it, you know, put it online. But if I don't have to list it, why list it, right? Yeah. So I've learned over the years how to sell my house, you know, before it hits the market. So not every house I can do that with, but a lot of them, you know, there's in my opinion, the way the real estate market is, you know, people want to buy houses, but they don't want to buy bad houses, especially with the rates the way they are, you know, the way the market is now. You know, if you're going to spend money, you want most bang for your buck. So if I can be an investor and give you a beautiful house, fully renovated, everything you could want in it, there's a good chance somebody's gonna wanna buy this house. So what I do, I put on social media. I put on Instagram, put on all these sites. And I tell everybody I can tell about it, friends, family, people in my office. And there's a very high percentage chance that I sell it to somebody before I even put it on the market, because
Okay.
they have a client that's interested in that. And especially during COVID,
Yeah.
with all the offers being so crazy and 100,000 over asking, if somebody got a little bit of an insight that there's a house not on the market yet,
Yeah.
and I just put my number out there and they give me they give me the price that I want, and it works for them as well, it was just a quick sale, 1, 2, 3.
So the other thing that I think would be probably very interesting to somebody who might want to buy a house like that, if you're selling that house or someone's buying that house while you're in the construction process, I suppose you have the luxury of offering people finishes.
Correct.
You choose the paint color, you choose the countertop, you choose the cabinet, so they get to actually customize it along the way within a budget range, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've done it actually many times with clients now. So if I find a buyer, or if an agent brings a buyer, whatever the case may be, during construction, let's make it work. You pick the color, like you said, the floor color, the cabinet color, a couple different items that I let them pick out, and customize it a little bit. Take advantage of being able to get this house off market during the construction. And if you want something extra that's more than what I'm doing, we'll work out the numbers and we'll get it done. And there's so many benefits to that in that sense. It's kind of like a new build without going through the whole new build process.
Right. Is it also is it easier for a buyer to buy that kind of property with less competition since it didn't hit the market?
I think so, because if in your mind this house is going to be beautiful when it's done, and if we all think that when a beautiful house hits the market at a relatively good price, that there's going to be a ton of competition, why not say, hey, rather than try to haggle with me, let's come to a price that's fair, and let's get it done. And then now you can lock that in contract. You're not out there worrying about, are you going to get accepted offer? You're not worrying about where you're going to give and take on what you like and don't like in a house. You can have a lot more say in what the house is. And the reality is, on the back end, when you buy a house, most people want to do things to the house. They want to renovate this, change that, kitchen, bathroom. If I can give them a lot of those things, and then day one when they move in, they just start living, enjoying life, it's a lot of positive things.
I get the feeling that because of your background and the way you approach your business, you're more comfortable. You'd like to sell it to somebody in process so you feel secure about what the ending is and they get to pick out the finishes, as opposed to being a little more greedy and holding out to put it on the market. Because in the past market, it's been very competitive where people are bidding up these prices on there. So I think a guy like you would rather just secure a buyer, get it done at a fair price, and not say, well, you know what, I've decided to wait and put it on the market after and create all kinds of competition.
Yeah.
Is that your style?
Yeah, definitely. During COVID particularly, a lot of people used to say to me, Faye, why don't you just not list it yet, wait, not talk about it yet, let the house finish, take great pictures,
Top
videos,
dollar.
put it on there, you'll get multiple offers. And the reality is it probably could have happened.
Yeah.
But that could have, even though we know what the market was and it was so crazy, I want to make money like everyone else, but I also want to make sure that I don't lose money. And I also want to make sure I'm thinking of what's next.
Yep.
The faster I can get this household to somebody that wants it, and to somebody that's going to be happy with it, the faster I can move on to my next project.
So this house is being sold, contracted, closing, and all that while it's still under construction?
Yeah, literally the day we finish construction, contracts already signed prior to, but the day we finish construction, I called that loan officer and said, order appraisal. And appraisal's ordered. From the day I finished construction and closing, I want to be out of the house in a month and a half, max, month and a half, because they're already in contract. So the loan officer has already started the mortgage process. We're basically just kind of waiting for the appraisal and the commitment.
That's great stuff. I don't know if all builders approach this the same way. I'm sure there are some very reputable like yourself, very ethical, and I'm sure there's some that are a little shady. I know as a realtor, when I go in a house with a buyer, I can spot a flip a mile away, but some of them are impeccable.
Yeah.
You can see the molding's tight, the floors are level, everything's right, and you go to others, it's sloppy. You open the garage and they left behind the paint and tools and stuff and cut corners. You can see the difference.
And nobody's perfect, right? So, I always try to preface that and tell everybody, I'm not perfect, but hey, if something's not right, I will always 100% make it right,
Do you, as a builder, when you sell a house like this, is there a warranty that comes with the house?
So, it's kind of like a gray area, right? Because when you're buying a house and you go to the closing table with your client and, you tell your buyer, hey, once you sign these papers and we're closed, there's no givebacks. This is your house. You own it the way you get it today. That's kind of it. So with that being said, if I happen to get to know the buyer person buying my house and, we develop a relationship through the process, I don't want to say there's a year warranty, 10-year warranty. if there's something that happens and it's something that happens in the next few weeks, few months, call me. I'll help you out. If all of a sudden, the house caves in on itself, homeowners insurance, let's call them and see what we can do.
Yeah, right.
But if all of a sudden your sink is leaking or a piece of molding fell off or something, call me. Defect, of course, I'm gonna come by and I'll take care of it. Yeah.
I know with new construction, very often it comes with a home warranty for a year.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that the builder's going to show up, that they're still in business, that they're going to honor it.
I have a client that I sold a house to, real estate wise now. About a year ago, she bought a new construction from a builder. 3-4 months into her living there, her condenser wasn't working. It's been a year now. The air conditioning, yeah. And it's been a year now, and she's been talking to the builder, she's bought it and living there, and she hasn't gotten it fixed yet. So as much as people say there's these warranties, there is, but it's not just, hey, I'm going to call you and you're coming. There's so much fighting and battling. That's why, I just believe if you just do the right thing, and just be done with it, And if it's something that's honestly somebody's taking advantage of you, then you deal with it. But if it's something that it's the right thing on your part, I think you need to do what you have to do.
That's a good point. I want to flip the conversation now, and let's talk about it from a seller's point of view.
Okay.
Right? So we're competing for sellers. I'm going to get a house that I can list for sale. You're looking for a house that you can list for sale. You're looking for a house that you can buy as an investor, flip it and sell it, right? Mm-hmm. Are we really targeting the same person? Are you targeting, as a flipper, are you targeting a different type of property?
I would say we're probably targeting different people to an extent. Obviously if a house is in decent condition, just dated, you can list that house and I can potentially try to buy it to flip it.
Right.
The difference is if it's just dated and it's not destroyed or there's no significant issues with it,
right,
a seller's not going to be able to come down enough probably for me to buy it, close on it,
right,
fix it, and then sell it for profit. Where if it's where you can just put it on the market and get the max for them, which is probably way more than I can pay them. But if a house is in more of a distressed condition, it needs significant work, that's a house that I'd probably have a better chance of getting, because the homeowner knows or will know at some point that there's not a buyer walking in this house that's getting a mortgage on it. It's not mortgageable. So you need either a cash buyer, which if you list it on multiple listings, 50-50, you got a cash buyer to come in there, and if they are, they're probably an investor, which I am already here.
Right.
I'm knocking at the door. You don't have to list it for me to come back again.
There are plenty of houses we walk into to go list, and they're not up to date, maybe not clean, maybe in disrepair, but they're functioning. The roof works, the heating system works, and
Correct.
I'm going to sell that on the market, but it's not going to get the same as the neighbor who has a brand new kitchen, right?
Correct.
So that's one property. But then there's the other house you walk into, and well, nobody's lived in it in a year and a half. There's been water damage. The heating system doesn't work. Sometimes the heating system's not even in the building.
Correct.
And like you said, you can't get a mortgage on that house. That's really the house that you're targeting as an investor, right?
Correct. Yeah. The worse off it is, the better essentially it is for me. Obviously any condition we would love to get if the price is right, but the more work it needs is the more we can hopefully negotiate with the seller to get a price that's reasonable for us. And also, the chances, if the house has been vacant for a long time or it's in really poor condition, they're probably in a need where they need to either get out the house or they can use the money to go purchase something else.
Well, you just brought up my next question. It was, the seller doesn't always know their house is in distress, do they? They've been living in it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's their home. They don't realize that it's really not a mortgageable property or
Correct.
It's distressed.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself sometimes having to convince the seller that it's distressed and it's not going to get to the market?
Yeah,
the dollar on the market?
a lot of these sellers, for whatever reason, they take the condition of their house and they put it out of mind, and all they consider is what the market is. The market is for my house and not my condition, but my house, the size,
the neighborhood,
neighborhood I'm in, and all these other variables. But they don't take the condition of the house. For some reason, it's just not part of their thought process. And then that's where we come in and say, hey, we have to consider this. When somebody walks in here, they need to be able to live here with a family. They need to be able to be functional. I know you live in this condition, but not everyone does, and we have to take that into account.
That was my next point, standard of living, right? People who are living in that environment for 30 years, they don't realize that their standard of living is lower than somebody else's.
Yeah,
So what doesn't look wrong to them, you and I would walk in the house and say, but that's wrong for everybody I'm going to come through this door and market this house to.
Correct.
So I'm sure you very often have to convince somebody you're really in more distress than you realize. You're not going to get the market value for that house you think. And then you're making a cash offer, right? You're not buying a house with a mortgage, are you?
No, cash offer, quick close. There's no contingencies. Obviously, we're seeing it the way it is. We're buying it the way it is. And a lot of times people think that investors just make these offers to people and, that's it. But, we're not giving people X amount of money and then saying, hey, you're on the road. We also have to think about the side of it where now we have to help them paint a picture for what their next chapter in life is. We have to help them say, hey, now we'll help you find a house somewhere else. We'll help you find an apartment. We'll help you move. We'll help you get to the next step. We'll call a family member. There's more than just us buying the house. It's, okay, we have to take this person, and we're not sitting here kicking people on the road. We're not doing evictions. We're trying to buy your house from you, but we also need to know that if you don't have a place to go, you're not going to sell me your house.
Right.
So we're first helping you find a place and also let you know where the money's coming from to get it,
Fabian, what question didn't I ask you that you would like the consumer to know? When you knock on their door and say, hey, I'm here, I'm making cash offers, I was thinking, what would you want that person to know about the person knocking on the door?
Yeah, is that I'm not here to take advantage of you, The reality is, depending on your situation, you could be in foreclosure, you could be losing your home, you could be going through a hardship, My goal here is to see what your situation is, how I can help your situation. Obviously, in turn, by helping you, and if you end up leaving this house, I'll get the house and I can do what I need to do at that point. But first and foremost, if I can help you, then I can help myself. But I'm not helping myself by knocking on your door. I'm helping myself by finding out what your problem is, what your situation is, and seeing if I can help fix that for you.
Do you find that people are sometimes shocked about what the cash value of a distressed house is worth? Do people often get surprised?
Surprised, yeah. I mean, and sometimes surprised both ways, there's some people who think their house is worth more because they're not living in the present and saying, hey, my house in this condition is worth this. And they're like, well, that's too low, I can get more. But there's also some people who think that their house is worth nothing because they really actually have an idea, like, I know my condition of my house, I know how it is. And then we offer them a little more than what they thought because it's fair and they're happy. So it can work both ways. It just depends on, the situation of the house.
Terrific. What's the name of your construction company?
F&M Flips.
F&M Flips.
Yeah.
Well, again, my guest today is Fabian Sookoo. I appreciate you coming here. We'll have this interview posted on my YouTube channel. Check us out. It'll be posted as snippets all over social media. You'll be tagged. We'll have some information up about how to find Fabian, his construction company. You can always ask me some questions if you have any more follow-up questions for this interview. But thanks for coming out today.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you.